Welcome back to IASTech. In this video, we will learn how to build Node.js authentication system using JWT. It would be very simple, easy, and straightforward step-by-step tutorial to show you how you can do that by yourself. So let's begin. First of all, open your terminal and type npm init to initialize the Node project from scratch. Just you can add anything here. I am just pressing enter to keep everything by default. Okay, we have the package.json. Next, I am going to create the main index.js file. In this file, we will add our Node.js code that would run. Next, we need to install some main dependencies that are required to make this authentication system possible. So install these libraries: npm install uh, express.env and the last one, JSON web token, and add the save flag to save it in the dependencies list. So you can see that we have all these three dependencies. Next, we need to install the Nodemon dependency as a development dependency. Type npm install Nodemon save dev. So we are using Nodemon because it will help us to restart the server every time we make any change. We would not have to stop and start the server again to reflect the new changes. Every time you make a new change, it will restart the server for you instantly, and that will save your time. So Nodemon is here. Now we need to add a script to start the server. So add any name for the script and type Nodemon and type the path of the file that you want to run on every change in nodemon space index.js. Save it, and now I will add a console here to test if Nodemon is working correctly. Console.log hello, and say now I'm going to run npm run dev. So you can see that it has executed this line. That means server is running. Now, if you change something and save it, then you would see that the new change has been detected and applied successfully, and it is working correctly. Now, we are going to add some basic code to build this Express server. First of all, you require or import the Express library that we installed earlier. Let Express is equal to require, and now create a variable let app is equal to express. Call the express function. Now type app.listen and add the port number that you want to use to run application. I would add 3000 and add a second parameter as function. If application is started successfully on this port, then it will run this function. In this function, I would show a console message that would indicate that server is running successfully. Okay, I'm going to press save and see. Okay, you can see that server is running on port 3000. Next, I'm going to add an endpoint here, app.get/posts. So if user hit on this endpoint, then we are going to return a list of posts uh, as the response of this request. So pass request and response parameter. So we are receiving these two parameters from this function that would be executed when we receive a request on this endpoint. So let's say we have a variable. Normally in the real scenario, we have a database and you get the posts from the database. But for now, as this is a really simple tutorial, so I would just save the posts in an array that we would use title XYZ and user ID 1. How I would say 55. And you can add many more posts just to test it. I may changed the user ID for this post just to test it after we implement the authentication system to make sure that we are uh, getting fetching the correct data and showing it to the user properly. So for now, I'm just going to send all of the posts. So now let's test this endpoint to see if it is working correctly. As this is a get method, that is why I selected the get. So for right now, I'm using the Postman to test it, but you can use your own existing application, like if you are using Angular or a static website or React.js or any other application, you can just use that one, but you can also use the Postman to test it. So now I am going to add the URL HTTP localhost and add the port that is being used and add slash. Now add the endpoint name and the endpoint name is posts. And now I'm going to run it. So we have to use a response function to send the response, not the request. Okay, now you can see that we got this response. We have all of the posts coming back from the endpoint. Next, we need to implement the login system. So as soon as we user tries to log in, we will return an access token. So we will use that access token to authenticate all of the incoming requests from the user. So for right now, we are not doing any authentication, and we are giving back all of the data without checking, without authentication. So, so after implementing the login system, we would use the access token that would be generated by the login system, and we will use that access token to authenticate if a user is authorized to access this data or not. So, other than that, we would also generate the refresh token as well. The benefit of refresh token is that Uh, normally, if we use the access token, the normal best practice is that we should expire the access token, because if somebody get access of the access token, it would stay active forever and user can misuse it. If your access token is expired, then anybody can use it anytime in future and hack your data. So the best practice that we create access token with the expiry date, and we add we create another refresh token. And the benefit of refresh token would be that if, for example, the use case is that if user clicks on the logout button, and if we want to log out the user, we will just destroy the refresh token so that user would not be able to generate an access token again to get the access. So you would understand it more clear when I will show you with this example. So let's do that practically. So I would create another endpoint, get slash login. I would use the post method because we would be sending the data through the post method. And similarly, I'm passing, getting the request and response objects from the parameters. So from this parameter, I am expecting an object with username and password properties from the body. For example, let username is equal to request.body.username and password body.password. So we have to hit this endpoint from the postman and we have to pass these two values. But as we are using Express and we are trying to pass data to the post method, we have to use another uh, library. So we have to pass another middleware that would make it possible for us to receive the data from the post in the form of JSON. So for that, you have to call that middleware like this app.use and in that type express.json. So in this way, if you pass express.json as the middleware, then you would be able to receive the data from the post method in the form of JSON. So I'm going to pass this information from the postman, go to the raw section and select the type JSON and type the object that we are going to pass. Username, admin, password is ABC. So on this side, I want to console this data to make sure that we are getting all of this information. So I would say console.log request.body and let's see. So I hit this button. Actually, I should change the endpoint to the login and this should be the post method. Okay, look at this. It is showing all of the data that is coming from the postman and we should also return something to close the request. So for now, I am returning this string just to stop the process after request is sent. So you can see responses coming. Next, uh, we need to uh, generate a JSON token based on this username. So I would create another function, JSON token, and in this token I would receive the data. And now uh, I need to import the JWT from the JSON Web Token library. So let's do that. Let JWT is equal to require JWT Web Token, JSON Web Token, and now we need to uh, create that token with the help of this data. We would use JWT dot sign, and in the sign function we have to pass this data as the first parameter, and in the second parameter we have to pass a secret value. So as the name says, it is a secret value. We should not hard code the secret value like this. So we should actually pass the secret value with the help of the environment variable. So that is the best practice for that. Create a new file .env and you can type the name, for example, secret for access token and type anything Uh, you can type, you can generate a secret token, or you can add anything that you have. So it should be random or anything. It does not matter a lot. So I would just type the random characters for now. Okay, next we need to have secret for the refresh token. So I added anything randomly. So now I need to access the secret for the access token from this environment file. To do that, we need to load the .env and call the config function from it. So require .env.config. That would automatically pick the .env file and load all of the variables from it into the process.env property. So now we can just do this process.env dot now copy the name for the environment variable that is going to be used here, and here we should add an expiry date. For now I'm not adding that. I will add that very shortly. So I'm going to return this token, and let token is equal to this. So for example, I have list of users uh, in the same way like we have list of posts. And for example, the IDs are 558899, and names are David, James, and XYZ, whatever. And username, for now, I would use these one as usernames. Okay, we have now list of users. So if user tries to log in, we can just check against the database of users, and we will get the user. For now, as this is a simple example, so I would not be using the password for now. I would just use the username, and I would get the user based on this username. So, for example, let user is equal to users dot find, and here I would get the user, and I would return that user if user dot username is equal to the username that was received from the request body. Okay, now we have a user in this variable. We will also double check if user does not exist, then we will throw an error. We will just return an error to the response. So let's check that if user does not exist, then we will just say this response dot send status. You can just pass any status code like this, and you should just break the process by returning anything. This would just stop the process below this line, and nothing would execute it after this line. And if user is valid, then we will come to this section of the code. And now, as we have a valid user, we would just pass that user to this generate JSON token function, and we would get a token. Now we need to generate an access token as well. So I would also create another function that would say generate. Uh, Actually, the name should be access token for this function, and for this function, the name should be generate refresh access token or refresh token, and you should use the same variable that is defined here in the .env file. Okay, now I would use this function to get the refresh token. All right. Now, in the response, I can return these two tokens like this token and refresh token. So now, if I try to log in, if the user is incorrect, then I should receive an error in the form of status code. And if user is valid, then we should get the token in response. So let's try. Uh, I sent it and I got an error. Let me see. So status code is not a function. Okay, sent. Okay, now it is working fine. It is sending a status with 401, and in the response you can see it is 401. That means unauthorized. And now if I add a valid username, then let's see what happens. You can see now username was valid, so it gave me back the token and the refresh token. I can use this information next time to get the data. Like I want to get a list of the post, I can use that information. So now right now it is returning all of the posts. I only want to get only those posts that are for only for this user. So for that I would have to filter it. Let a user posts is equal to post. We will filter out the posts with the help of the filter function. Filter post and post dot user ID. And by the way, in the token, let me see what we are saving. Yes, we are saving the exact user. So when uh, when we will get the user post, when we will get the request for the post, we will filter out the post based on the current user. And to get the current user, we will check the uh, token that was given in the request. So first of all, let's create another tab to fetch the posts. So here I would type the posts, and so this is how we normally authenticate. We have to pass the access code uh, in the header section. So go to the header section, type the authorization, and here we need to pass bearer. So this is the I mean, this is how it normally works. So you should add the bearer in the front of the token, and now go back to the response page and copy the token that you want to use to authenticate your request. So, okay. Now, first of all, I need to get the header value from this authorization. Let authorization is equal to request dot headers, and it should be like this. Let's change the case to small. Okay, this way it would give us this entire string, and in order to test it, I can just console it. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so I console it, and that token is being shown in the console. That's mean we are getting the token from this header. Now we have to split the function this string to get the token because it has the bearer word as well in it. So first of all, we will check authorization is equal to, if there is authorization string we got from the header, then we would split from the space and uh, get the value from the first index, from the index one. So I mean like this, split and space. So it that's mean it would split from this space, uh, and now add one. That's mean after space it would get this part with the one index. Now we have pure authorization. Actually, let me add some different name token. And now we need to verify if this token is valid or not. By the way, yeah, we just need to check if token does not exist, does not exist at all. That means user did not send anything. Then we would just throw an error by sending a status code. You can send 401, and if user sent a token, then you should verify that token by using JWT. So let's try that. If JWT dot verify, and in the verify you have to pass that token. Also, you have to pass the secret for the access token in the second parameter. And it would, when you verify it, it would return the value from that token. So as you remember, we saved the value, we saved the user in the token. So if you verify it, then it would give you back the same object. And in our case, it was the user. So I would create a variable, let user is equal to this. So we will check if user does not exist. If it is not valid, then we would just send another status message. We should also break the process after the status. Similarly here, 403 written. And if everything is fine, then we will come down here and we will filter post based on the user that we receive from this JWT token. Okay, so now it would give us only those posts that are relevant to this user, and it will exclude all other data that is not relevant to this current user. So I'm going to fetch it and let's see. Yeah, look at this. This time it has returned me only two posts with the user ID 55. So that's mean it is properly working based on this. By the way, we should create a middleware to move this part to that. That would be better. So I would create a middleware and I will write this app.use, and in that I should create a function that I would pass in there, authenticate authenticate request. Okay, and just pass it inside app.use. Actually, not here. Uh, we created a function authenticate request, and I will pass it uh, in the second argument for every uh, endpoint which I want to authenticate. So as this is the middleware, so we are receiving all three parameters: request, response, and next. So in here, you can move this logic inside that function. Okay, and here, if everything is fine, then you can just call the next function. And here, as we know that we got the user, we can just actually, this is the user condition, we should move it above as well. So if user is not valid, then we would just send a status, and if user is valid, then we will just put that user in the request dot user property so that you could access this user from the request object. Now we have user available in the request object. I can just use that like this, uh, request.user.id. And now we can test it again. Our code is now much simpler than before for the post endpoint. And you can see nothing changed in the response. It is still working correctly. So this is the right way to do it. So we are now authenticating the post method. We are now authenticating with the help of the middleware and with the help of the JWT. So right now the issue is that the token that we are using is going to stay forever. It would never expire. So that is risky. That is not recommended. We should destroy that token, or we should invalidate that token after a specific period of time. We should expire that token. So for that, uh, we should, in this function, we should add an expiry time as well. For example, in the I want to make it expire after you can add 15 minutes or 10 minutes expiry time, but for now for my testing I would just add 5 seconds just to, or maybe 15 seconds to show you how it is working quickly. So I just want to make sure that we what we have to pass. So to add expiry for 15 seconds, I would just type 15s. That's mean 15 seconds. So this way, after 15 seconds, it would not work. Uh, for example, here I would log in again, and I would get new token and refresh token. Something's wrong. So to make it expired after 15 seconds, just add an object and type expires in, and now add the 15s. So now let's try. To try it again, uh, I would click on the login button again to create a new token for me to test. So I clicked on that. I got a new token that would be expired in 15 seconds. So before that, I want to test it. So let's be quick. So if call it, you can see that I executed it with this token and it is working fine. I'm getting data. But after 15 seconds, you saw we got an error that is saying that JWT expired. So after exactly 15 seconds, it got expired. So I can go back, I can log in again with my credentials. I will take the token, new token again, and I will show you with this new token and see. I got data. I got data, but after 15 seconds, it got expired. So 15 seconds is very short period of time. I use this amount of time just to show you very quickly, but you should use higher number for the expiry. So now next question is that what would user do after his access token is expired? If access token is expired, then user obviously has the refresh token. He can use the refresh token to uh, recreate it, recreate the access token. So by the way, uh, we whenever we create the refresh token, we should be saving all of the refresh tokens in our database. In our case, we are just saving. We are not using in database for now, so we would be saving all of the refresh tokens in a local array. And so whenever we create a token, we should save in there. And Uh, so if user wants to get a new token based on that refresh token, then we would just find from that array to make sure if it exists. If that refresh token is invalid, then we would just throw a status error. So I would create an array, refresh tokens, and now I generated a token. I can push it into there, push refresh tokens. Okay. Now, if a user's token is expired, he want to uh, get a new token, he can just hit this URL, this endpoint, and the name of this endpoint would be uh, app.get/token, and here I would pass the request and response, and I am expecting a parameter refresh token from the request body. So first of all, I would check, make sure if this is a valid refresh token or not. For that, I would search for this token in my main refresh token array. So if refresh tokens dot find uh, token is equal to refresh token. If we find something in this array based on this refresh token, then that's mean this refresh token is valid. But if not, then I'm just going to break the process by returning something, and I would send a status before returning. So I would say response dot send status 401. Okay. Next, if this refresh token is valid, then I would just uh, go down and I would create another token based on this. So as I just need access token, but before that, I need to verify if this condition tells us that yes, user sent a refresh token. But we also need to make sure that if it is a valid token or not. So for that, We would just, and with that verification, it would also give us the user that was saved in this refresh token. So let user is equal to JWT dot verify, and I will pass this refresh token in it. And as a second parameter, I need to pass the uh, environment variable. I need to pass the secret for the refresh token. And if this is a valid token, then it would give us a user the payload of the JWT token. If not, then it would be null. So I would check it here. If it does not exist, or if it is not a valid response from the verification verify function, then I would just return to break the process, and I will send a new status error status code that would be 403. By the way, you can, if you want to know more about the status code, you can just go to the. By the way, if you want to know more about these status codes, you can just go to the uh, Google and check for the status codes. So you would get the meaning for every status code. For example, you want to know what does it mean by 401, you can type it here in Google and you will know the exact meaning for it. So you can see a lot of information about every status. Okay, so if user is valid, then I would just generate another token. And for example, I have already a function generate access token. So I would return this token as a response of this request, and I would pass the user, I would pass the token. I need to get that token. Let access token is equal to generate access token, and I will pass the user. Okay, so this is the access token. I'm going to return it back. So we can test if this token is working correctly or not. But before that, I want to increase the expiry time because this is too small. So let's try it again. So you can see right now it is not working at all. The token is expired. I want to renew the token. To renew the token, I need to get the refresh token. So I will copy the refresh token and I will call another endpoint that is localhost slash token, and I would pass the JSON that would have the refresh token in it. Okay, now let's see if it returns a token. Uh, this access token is not refresh token is not saved in this array yet because this token that I'm using was created before that feature. So I'm going to log in it again, and I got the latest refresh token that is now stored in this array. Now I'm going to test this token to get my posts, and you would see that now I'm getting the post. After 25 seconds, it would expire, and we would not have access to the this endpoint anymore. Just wait for a few seconds. Okay, you can see that as token is expired, now we got the error. So now I want to get a new token to get access to this endpoint. For that, I will come here. I first of all I need to get the refresh token, and I would add it here. I will delete this one and I will paste it. Now I will click on send button. That should give me new token, but it did not. Let me see what is the wrong token get method. Okay. we are getting 4 1. So that's mean we are inside this section. Oh, I did a mistake here. So I was pushing the refresh tokens instead of refresh tokens. So this was wrong. Now I'm doing it correctly. So let's try it again. I would have to log in once more. Okay, now I got a token. I would use it here to test it. Okay, I have access to the post. Wait for 25 seconds, and after it is expired, we will lose the access. Okay, after 25 seconds, you can see the token is expired. Now I need a new token. I would go there, get my refresh token, and put it here and run it. Look at this, I got a new token. Let's quickly test it with this to see if we have access to this endpoint or not yet. Uh, okay. Uh, I think something is wrong here. When we get the user from the verify, we should check it what we're getting in it. Console.log user, and let's see what we're getting here. So, for example, I log in. Now, if I try to generate a new token, then I would see what I have in the console. Yes, we have this thing in console, and
So we need to test that if user generate a new token, that if that token works with the post endpoint or not. For that, before doing that, I want to change something here. So here we need to get uh, the user. For now, I would call it payload, and we want to get fresh details of the user from the database. So I would get let user is equal to user.find and payload user.id is equal to payload.id. And now we got the user. Now let's test it again. I would log in once more and get the token, test it with the endpoint, and let's see, it is working. After 25 seconds, it should expire. So as you saw, it is expired again. Now I want to generate a new token with the using this access to refresh token. So let's put it here and run it again. Oh, what is this? Sorry, we did a mistake here. So now I would log in once more. We got a token, and I would paste that token here to test if we are receiving data. Yes, we are getting data. It should stop working after 25 seconds. Okay, now token is expired. Now I want to create a new token. Grab the refresh token from here and put it here. Run it again. We need to test if we create a new token from the refresh token, then we need to check if that token works correctly with this endpoint or not. For that, let's log in. Before doing that, I want to make some changes here. So instead of calling it user, I would call it payload, and I would check it here. And now I would create a variable. Let user is equal to users dot find user user.id is equal to payload.id. Okay, so this way we will get the user, and now let's log in once more, and we got the token. I'm going to use this token here in this endpoint, and this token should expire after 25 seconds. It is working fine so far. Meanwhile, I'm going to copy the refresh token that I would use to generate a new token. So wait for the expiry. Okay, it is expired. Now I want to get a new token. So I would delete this one and paste my refresh token here. I got a new token. Now I'm going to use this token here instead and run it. Now you can see now it is working again properly. And this is the same kind of token. This would also expire after 25 seconds. So after 25 seconds, we will see it would stop working. Okay, it has expired. Now, the last thing I want to show you that if user log out, then we should uh, destroy that refresh token. Okay, so because if user log out, then nobody can use that. Even if somebody get the access of that refresh token, then that person would not be able to do anything with that refresh token because user has clicked on the logout button and we will delete that entry from the database. So that refresh token would not exist in our database anymore. So for that, let's create another endpoint called logout app.get logout, and here I will receive request and response, and this here response.send status. So this is a success status. If everything is fine, then we will just send a success status, and we will be expecting a refresh token from the headers. Uh, Actually, let's just use the same token that the access token that we would get from the middleware. So I'm going to pass the middleware like we passed in the post method. So I would just pass this one by passing this middleware here. It would give us the token in the request object, so I can just use it to make sure. Uh, and if everything is fine, then it will let us come in this function. If nothing is fine, if token is not valid, then we would never be able to come in this section. So I would just say, I would just remove the refresh token from here. But actually, I think we have to get the refresh token from the logout as well because we need to find that refresh token from the list of the refresh tokens. Okay, so or another thing that we can do is that we can keep the array of the objects. So if I am going to push the refresh token, then I can just push an object that would have token is equal to refresh token and user ID is equal to user.id. Okay, in this way I will have access. So I have to make some changes like this. Okay, so now in the logout section, I can just find my refresh token that I want to delete. So I can just do this. Refresh tokens is equal to refresh tokens dot filter token uh, obj object dot we need to also make sure that okay, anyways, everything's fine. So here we are filtering out the token, refresh token that is no longer needed in the database because the user wants to log out. So I would just check if user ID is equal to request.userid. Okay. If this so I would use not operator if user ID is not equal to this user ID, then we should keep other refresh tokens, and in this way it will work fine. And our refresh token should stop working. Before doing that, I want to reduce the time of expiry. So, for example, I am going to log in again. It has given me this token. I'm going to use it here, and it is working, and expired. And now I want to generate another one token. I would just grab this one, this refresh token, and paste it here, and got another one. I would use it again. It would also be expired after 10 seconds, so it is working correctly so far. After it is expired, I can definitely click on this button to generate a new token. But I want to destroy my session. I don't want to be able to create new tokens with this refresh token. I want to log out. So after logout, this refresh token should not be working anymore. Okay, so for that, I would call another endpoint, localhost logout. And in the authorization section, in the header section, I need to pass the token like I was doing earlier for the post. So, okay, now I call it. I got an error. What is this? Actually, this token is expired so far. I need to generate a new token to pass it. So I got a new one and hurry up, let's pass it here and send it. I got a success response, and now it is removed. It should be removed from the array of the refresh token. So now if I try to recreate it, then it should not work. Actually, this was the issue that there's a user coming here. I was using user ID, so let's add this one. Now it should work fine. We have tested everything. We can just test logout. So first of all, let log in. Login is working correctly. Now I want to test if access refresh token is working fine, if we are able to generate new tokens or not. Yes, we are able to do that, but I want to log out for that. Actually, this was expired. I was late because 10 seconds are too small. I have to be very quick. Okay, it is done. Now, if I try to recreate a token with the help refresh token, then it should not work because refresh token was removed. So let's say you can see that now it is saying unauthorized. We cannot create a new token with the help of refresh token because this refresh token has been removed from this array, and we did that with the help of the logout endpoint. So that's how we implement a very basic login system with the help of the JWT library. So I think you have learned a lot with this tutorial. If you think this was a useful tutorial for you in any way, then please make sure and don't forget to subscribe my YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to get all of the new notifications. Thank you for watching. See you later. Bye.